It's Monday, and you know what that means. Welcome to Throne Zone Season 3, Episode 2. This is your captain speaking, along with s3e Daniel of House Crimmins.
Good morning, and good evening wherever you are in the world.
Yes, on this lovely summer day. So we're 4 episodes into House of the Dragon, almost at the halfway point. And the pieces are well and truly on the board.
Oh yeah, especially after last night. Like, you know, one of the complaints I've heard is, oh, it's slow, but you gotta think Game of Thrones season one, first couple episodes were kind of slow too, and it's like a game of chess. You have to get everything on the board, all the pieces in the right place.
Yeah, these are a whole new bunch of characters
Oh yeah.
that we're being introduced to. With Game of Thrones, Season 1 is about getting to know who everybody is, and there's a lot of characters to get to know in Season 1. Once you know who everybody is, I found Season 1 of Game of Thrones much more enjoyable on a rewatch.
Oh, same here. Honestly, I think it was one of the better ones.
Yeah, once you know who everybody is, you go back and watch it, you realize just how strong that first season was. And we're probably going to feel the same way about House of the Dragon once we have the whole story and then we go back and rewatch Season 1 before Season 2 next year.
Oh yeah.
But that's not to say we're not enjoying it right now. It's going from strength to strength. Like, they started off with a whole bunch of dragon action. We had very little dragon action in the last episode. In episode 3, however, we did get some fire raining down
Oh
at
yeah.
the end. So before we begin, you can raise your banners for us by giving the channel a like. Follow us on social media, of course, at Throne UK. So first off, we talked in our first episode about how Rhaenyra changed between the first 2 episodes, becoming much more confident. In episode 2, she changed again for episode 3, becoming even more fierce. And now again in episode 4. So last week we moved forward about 3 years since episode 2, and all of a sudden the king has a son. Rhaenyra's claim is threatened. Not only that, but she feels betrayed by her best friend, now stepmother, who is also pregnant with a second child by Viserys. So naturally, she's become very hostile as Rhaenyra.
I think in addition to becoming hostile, she's become isolated.
Yeah, well, she's
Like
lost her best friend,
Alicent
really.
Hightower was like the one person that she felt she could relate to and talk to, and know that Alicent was going to be honest with her. And there was kind of like they had romantic feelings with each other, and I think she feels betrayed on that regard as well, but. I don't know. Like, there's a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah. She has become one of, if not the most complex character because she's going through so much so quickly. And I think she's 18 at this point now, so she's been going through this for like 4 years.
Yeah, 18, 19-ish, I think.
Um, and obviously she's acting up now, which is burdening the king, so to speak.
He said, I believe it was last night's episode. There was a line, he's trying to get her married off, and she said, and she says, "I will." She says, "You want me married off because I'm a you don't want me to be a political headache." And he snaps back with, "Right now, you are my political headache."
Yeah. Viserys is very difficult to read right now because obviously he finally has a son who, to most people, should be heir to the throne, but
Yeah,
he's named Rhaenyra heir to the throne. And as much as he's always wanted a son to inherit the throne, he seems very much to be committed to no, Rhaenyra is next in line.
exactly. And he tells himself that's what he wants. Like, he's saying, I want Rhaenyra. I promised it to her, but there's already precedent there. Daemon was heir apparent. You disinherited him, so it's. And I think that's where Rhaenyra is coming from. Is she's thinking, well, you already stripped Daemon. What's to stop you from taking it away from me?
Yeah, and she's always obviously had this very strong bond with Daemon, which, needless to say, has got very much stronger since last night's episode.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, almost in the biblical sense.
you know what? We're very much aware of how incestuous the Targaryen dynasty always was, and yet somehow it still kind of takes us by surprise when s- that kind of thing happens.
And people don't realize. They think, well, I thought that was a Lannister thing. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. That was all the more shocking about Jamie and Cersei. Yeah, like this isn't a Lannister thing, and yet
No.
somehow people
You know,
didn't
there,
really seem that bothered by it.
there was always the theory that Jamie and Cersei Lannister were really the children of Aerys Targaryen and Joanna Lannister.
Yeah, one of the many things that D&D didn't really want to explore.
What about you don't hear about them?
Right.
Like
Oh
they've
yeah,
kind of gone back in their hole and are just, doing
yeah,
what they lost the Disney deal, the Star Wars deal. Thank God.
yeah. We're not supposed to talk about those two.
They don't exist.
No, that certainly don't exist anymore. So, last week the crab feeder, I don't think we saw enough of.
Mm-mm.
We had small glimpses in episode 2, and then he gets taken out at the end of episode 3 in a badass way, of course.
But
And
we didn't
as
see it.
no, we didn't actually see him get cut down. We just saw guts,
Like
sausages.
his torso.
Yeah. And as awesome as that whole scene was, I think we would have benefited more from having more time to want to see this guy dead.
Yeah. And I think part of it is like, I'm of two sides. When you think of like slasher characters, like you're Michael Myers, you're Jason Voorhees. Part of what makes them so badass and monstrous is they don't talk.
Yeah.
This guy, we never saw him say a word. I mean, the crab feeder, he's not mentioned all that much in the book Fire and Blood. Just a couple sentences here and there. But I think that's part of what made him so monstrous in the show is that we didn't hear him talk. And I think it was a nice throwback to Game of Thrones, or throw forward.
Yeah.
But he was wearing a cracked Sons of the Harpies mask,
Yeah.
and he
That's
had
something that
grayscale.
needs, yeah, that mask needs to be explained because like these shows are separated by like 200 years.
Yeah, right around there. But I wish we could have gotten more from him.
Yeah. Again, doesn't need to talk, doesn't need to say anything, but I think if we'd have seen more scenes of him like torturing people and why he was such a threat, then I think we could have appreciated his death more. Although Damon taking on an entire friggin' army all by himself was enough
And
to satisfy us.
beating the messenger, like,
Oh yeah,
yeah, let me get the message of offering help, and just sort of, yeah, he has that expression where he's just like, oh, okay.
which I think was addressed actually in Game of Thrones, where I can't remember who it was, but somebody
It
was
was
brought a
Aemon.
message.
It was Maester Aemon, I think.
Yes, at Castle Black, and he said, "Why do we use ravens? Because my ancestor Daemon once beat a messenger to death." And there you go.
And to me, Game of Thrones, this biggest badass Aemon Targaryen, only
Yeah,
due to die a natural death.
right. Of old age.
Yeah, like he won the Game of Thrones.
And only one person knew who he actually was, too.
Yeah, and he kept that secret.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like that, apart from those eagle-eyed viewers of us, I kind of feel like that reveal went a little bit under the radar.
Oh yeah.
Um, but for Damon, he obviously owned episode 3 in just a
Oh
few
yeah.
minutes without a single word. Now, as far as for people saying that Damon is carrying the whole series, I don't think that's fair.
No. He's
He,
carrying a good chunk of it.
oh yeah, he and Rhaenyra are clearly the two strongest characters, and but I think she's just been just as memorable as he has.
Oh yeah.
So now we find him back in King's Landing, back at the Red Keep after offering his crown, um, and the stepstones to the king. I think we would be remiss in saying that it was obviously very suspicious of him to just return and hand over this crown of the
Oh
narrow
yeah.
seas. As the episode goes on, we understand he does have hidden intentions for returning. We saw Rhaenyra use a secret passage to meet Daemon and sneak out of the castle. Um, a few things happened in the streets. Like she sees this play about her family, and that's where she sees that the common people are very much against her inheriting the throne over her younger brother.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's tradition.
yeah, and this is something that Damon obviously wanted her to see. He wants her to know that the people would prefer her brother to have the throne.
Oh yeah. It was manipulating. It was like Damon wasn't stupid. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I think he always knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah. Like
He's a very complicated character. Like he's a villain. We thought he was the villain in episode 1. Then he becomes this heroic figure in episode 3, and then this manipulating character in episode 4 last night. He's just every emotion you can think of towards a character, you feel it towards Damon.
and you know it to me he kind of reminds me of a Tywin and Tyrion kind of character. Like, you
Yeah.
know, you want to feel for him, but at the same time you want to just like shake and be like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah, very much like Jamie to the extreme.
Oh yeah. Like, he goes from one extreme to the other where you absolutely fucking hate him, want him dead.
Yeah.
But and the sad part is because of everything, and you touched on this, like everything that Rhaenyra has gone through, she's very manipulated, and easily pliable.
Yeah.
And Damon knew what he was doing. He got her flustered last night, and so she goes back, and she ends up with the knight. I can't. His
Oh,
name
Kristen
escapes me.
Cole.
Yeah. So and she gets him in possibly in trouble because if they found out, he'd be beheaded or sent to the wall.
Yeah. Oh, he'd be gone. Again, she's changed again. Like Damon takes her to this orgy, and the incestuous relationship begins, and now all of a sudden she's very promiscuous.
Yeah, and is she probably gonna end up with Damon? Probably.
Yeah, I mean, without giving away many spoilers, there's a few things that we know about the Targaryens. There's a few things we've possibly seen in terms of the Targaryen history. So, it's not going to come as much of a surprise.
No, I mean, you gotta look back to Aegon the Conqueror. Like he married both his sisters.
Yeah,
It even says in the book Fire and Blood, he married his older sister Visenya out of duty. He married his younger sister Rhaenys out of out of lust.
yeah. See, and people thought Game of Thrones was shocking with the relationship between Cersei and Jaime.
That's
Um,
that's nothing.
that's nothing, as we've seen in just 4 episodes already. We've had, you know, the Valeryons trying to marry off their 12-year-old daughter to the king. We've had the,
Oh yeah.
the king marrying his daughter's best friend and having kids with her. And now we've got Daemon and Rhaenyra.
And it's obvious Alicent Hightower, she has no feelings towards Viserys. Like she
No,
just
no.
doesn't love him.
she's become a complex character too, and she's coming to see that the king only sees her as basically a baby making machine.
And I
And
think part of it is like she's torn, like because she's torn between her friendship and romantic feelings towards Rhaenyra
mm,
and her loyalty to her father.
yeah, and again, he's very manipulative of her.
Oh, yeah. Like I pose to you, there are comparisons between Otto Hightower and Tywin Lannister. There are people that are comparing the two. Are they the same? I don't think so. I don't think they're even remotely the same.
No, I'd be more inclined to compare him to Littlefinger.
Oh yeah, I think Otto Hightower is a little finger of the series, and we know how well it turned out for him.
Yeah. His intentions are pretty much very
Oh yeah,
clear. He wants power.
oh yeah, and he's gonna do what I mean. He pimped out his own daughter. You know, you have the king who just lost his wife. Like I think when he sent Allison to the king, I think he had just lost his wife like a couple months, and he's like, hey, gotta get back out there, gotta get remarried. Oh, he's the king. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, I give him a minute.
Let him mourn.
And at the same time, though, I think we had to side with Otto in episode 4 because he's not being deceitful. He's literally telling the king what he's been told about Rhaenyra and Daemon, and the king either doesn't believe him or doesn't want to believe him. And
I
it
think
ends
it's he
up
doesn't want to believe it.
no, until Daemon pretty much admits to it.
Yeah, he's basically
In,
saying, "Yeah, I did it."
in fact, he did more. Yeah, he did more than admit to it. He said, "Yeah, I did, and I want to marry Rhaenyra."
Yeah, he's basically saying it's not without precedent. We're Targaryens. It's what we do.
Yeah, and again, that's another thing about Daemon. He's very much a product of his family's traditions.
Yeah, and family. To me, Daemon is more of the Tywin Lannister type than Otto Hightower is.
Yeah,
More about family, more about the name.
and he damn sure knows how to win a fight.
Oh yeah, like that scene where he comes out of the cave carrying the Crabfeeder's torso, and he's just caked in blood,
Yeah,
and he's smiling, like he's just smiling, like he just won the lottery.
I'm sure that's how it actually felt. Like you dodged pretty much every arrow that was fired at you, apart from maybe one or two,
He
and
knew
then
how
you
to
just
zigzag.
oh yeah, he knew how to zigzag, and then just marches straight into this cave, comes out with the body. I think we need to give a little nod to Leno as well, though, for flying in with sea smoke and causing some damage.
Oh yeah,
Like, actually, that scene we had two dragons working together. Um, and this is also the introduction to us of it's not just Targaryens that are dragon riders.
no, it's House of Valerian too, which I would say to me that was one of the biggest mistakes that they made with Game of Thrones was they made people think that House of Valerian was extinct. It wasn't. They still were very much alive, but
They lost their dragons.
yeah, I think they said at the end the last dragon was like the size of a
Yeah.
dog or a cat.
Until, of course, the three eggs came into play.
And those dragons weren't even fully grown.
No, like I've seen a size comparison of Drogon and
Oh,
Balerion. And obviously, Balerion is enormous, or was enormous.
oh yeah,
Drogon didn't even come close, and he was still very young.
oh yeah. Like I think by the time the dragons landed in Westeros, I think Drogon and the other two were only like maybe three or four.
Yeah.
They were babies still.
Like Drogon's entire body was pretty much the size of Balerion's head.
Yeah. And my hope, and I know they've talked about this, I really would love to see a series about Aegon the Conqueror.
Yeah. Um, those are two series that I want to see after House of the Dragon, Aegon's Conquest and Robert's Rebellion.
Oh yeah. And even give us some Night King miniseries. You don't even need a whole couple seasons. Give us you can give us like an 8 episode miniseries and I'd be good.
Yeah.
I just want to see Balerion. I want to see that. I want to see that dragon. Like I want to see him in all his glory. I want to see the field of fire.
Yeah. Let's see Harrenhal burning down.
And
And
like,
it's going to be a lot of CGI, but
oh yeah, like there's so because I know one of the plans, and George R. Martin has talked about this, was he wants to see this in like the MCU, which people have said, well, how can you do that? There's not enough. There is tons of stories that you could do.
yeah, the Throneverse is huge.
Oh yeah, like you. I would love to see a Tywin Lannister series.
Yeah.
Like when the lore behind the Reigns of Castamere, do that. Like show that.
I think this is the great thing about George Martin is obviously he wrote this story, Song of Ice and Fire, but he also wrote all this history that happened before it.
Oh
Like
yeah,
there's so many stories to tell,
and
and it's all
people.
canon.
Oh yeah, and people have said that he have called him the Tolkien of this age. I think that's accurate.
Yeah. I think there's always been comparisons between Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, especially now that we've got House of the Dragon, and Rings of Power going head to head.
Both good shows.
I haven't seen any of Rings of Power yet. I think I'm gonna go through House of the Dragon first and then just watch it all.
I saw a little bit of it. It's not bad. Like it's people, and this is what I tell people, and it's with anything. People went into Rings of Power wanting the Peter Jackson Lord of the
Hmm.
Rings Hobbit. Like that's what they wanted. You're not going to get that. It's like with House of the Dragon. Like it, people got to accept that this is not Game of Thrones. Like this is not the same thing. It's different writers. It's different. It's different material. They say, well, the Iron Throne looks different. Well, of course it looks different.
We know from history that it changed over time.
Yeah, and it looks closer to the depictions from the books.
Yeah, that thing in the books is monstrous.
Oh yeah, and it's huge. Like there are steps to it. Like it's literally every sword that was taken up against Aegon the Conqueror, he took it and had Balerion melted into the Iron Throne to the point where a lot of subsequent kings didn't like sitting on it.
Yeah, as it says in one of the books, the throne will cut people who are unworthy that sit on it, and obviously we've seen Viserys suffer from it and is suffering from it.
Like he, I gotta think he's not long for this world.
No, um, we know he can't last much longer because obviously this whole thing is leading up to the Dance of Dragons and the fight for the throne between all the Targaryens,
Yeah,
basically.
I think what this is doing, and it's very smart. It's letting us know who the players are. I mean, obviously we've got Aegon the second. People say, "Oh well, he's just a baby." Well, right now he's a kid.
Yeah, and again, without giving any spoil, I haven't actually read the book, but I've like seen a couple of posts about it, and without giving like too many spoilers away, Aegon's gonna grow up to be not a very nice person.
No, it's a thing about people named Aegon, with except for Aegon the Fifth, who did not want it.
No. He all he wanted was to serve his queen.
Yep, and he didn't want it. But I think they've done it masterfully so far. Is getting all the pieces on the board. You got to think it shows you who the players are. It's Daemon, it's Rhaenyra, it's Aegon the Second. Like it's House Valerian. Like where are they gonna side? I got to think they're gonna back whatever side Daemon's on.
Yeah, the Valeryons are very much dark horses in this war to come.
Oh yeah, and they again, everybody has been cast so well.
Yeah, this cast is amazing. I know we said right from the beginning Matt Smith was going to be incredible, and he really is.
And Paddy Considine, he's been fantastic as well.
Yeah, like I really really like Viserys in episode 1, and the longer this series is going on, the more and more I'm thinking he's really not a great king.
No, he's he's too nice to be king.
I mean he was too nice. Now he's just too, I don't know, conflicted, under pressure, warped.
And I think he doesn't. To quote Jon Snow, he doesn't want it anymore. I don't think like he wants his brother around, and I think with Otto Hightower, like he knows Otto is right, but he won't let himself admit. Like he won't let himself say that yeah, my daughter did these things.
Yeah. It would have been a lot easier for Viserys if he did have a son earlier on. And as he said to Hightower in this last episode, he's still not over Emma. Like, he doesn't care about Ellison, but he did love Emma.
Yeah, I mean he likes Allison, but she's a baby making factory to him.
Yeah,
That's all.
she's for pleasure, but Emma was his soulmate, and all he wanted was a son by her.
And he got it.
Yeah, just for a day. Um,
It's sad though. I mean,
he's very much a tragic story.
like he should never have been king.
No,
But
I
going
don't.
back to history, after Jaehaerys died, there or before Jaehaerys died, and he had to name an heir because all his sons were killed.
Yeah,
You didn't really have a whole lot of choices. I think it was down between Jaehaerys. It was between Viserys and his sister,
yeah.
and I doubt they would have accepted her, the sister as queen.
No, no, very much how they don't want to accept Rhaenyra as the next queen, because there's never been a queen.
So I just think it's sad, and Viserys, he tries, but I think at this point he's given up. Like you had all that going on with the Stepstones. Should he have sent his armies in earlier? Absolutely. Like you're the king, you have people incurring on your land, take them out. Show force, and I think that's why Daemon killed the messengers. He's like, you know what? You weren't there when I needed you.
Mm.
I'll do this myself.
I think actually, no matter when Viserys could have intervened, I don't think Daemon wanted his help at all at any point.
No, I think Daemon was still a little salty over the getting stripped of the heir title.
Yeah, it's a very complicated relationship between Viserys and Daemon. Like, clearly they love each other as brothers, but they don't really respect each other.
No, Daemon wants what Viserys has.
If he could have his brother and the throne, I think he'd take it.
So it's like now that Otto is no longer the hand, what do you do?
Yeah. I think that was a big mistake for Viserys. Like we've talked about how Otto is very scheming and manipulative, but
Oh
at the
yeah.
same time, I actually do think he was in his own way very loyal to the king.
And I think part of the problem is like, if I've been thinking of this strategically, somebody like Otto Hightower, you want them close to you on one regard. If he's as scheming and conniving as he is, you don't want someone like that going to your enemies.
No,
You want somebody like that near you where you can keep an eye on them. Because, look at Littlefinger. When he was allowed to do his thing, he almost brought down the whole damn thing.
yeah, he's a much stronger ally than he is an enemy.
Oh, yeah. Or if he's going to be an enemy, keep him close.
Yeah,
It's the old keep your friends close, your enemies even closer.
especially in this world. Um, but Daemon definitely sees Viserys for what he is. He's a weak and feeble leader.
Great man, but like you said, weak and feeble leader.
Great man, terrible king.
I mean,
He,
it kind of seems to be the theme with Game of Thrones.
yeah.
I mean, as far as qualities of king, I would compare Viserys with Tommen.
Oh, Tommen was useless.
He was manipulated by his mother.
Yeah, and he was still a boy. He never stopped being a boy.
No.
He was naive. He was dumb. Um, and he probably had the cleanest death in the show
Yeah.
because we didn't actually see it, but he just jumped out the window.
He
Didn't
pulled
even
an
jump out the window. He just dropped out the window.
he pulled an Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, he leapt to faith. I'm pretty sure there was no hay down there.
Probably not. I mean, maybe maybe he went to roll hay and just said, you know what, I'm gonna go live my life elsewhere.
Yeah, it's crazy to say it, but I think the strongest king we've seen in House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones so far was Robert. You know, he wasn't a great man, but he was a good king.
Yeah, he was fair.
He was fair. He had the respect and the loyalty of the Northmen. The only problem was he married a Lannister
Yeah, and he also liked to spend money,
and drink.
but he didn't know things.
No, so certainly didn't know, or maybe he did know. We just never found out his children's true parentage.
I gotta think. I gotta think that he had to have at least suspected.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
he knew at least that Jamie had a thing for Cersei.
oh yeah, and like what gets me is the fact that Tywin never knew. I
Oh
think
yeah,
Tywin knew, he just didn't want to admit it.
yeah. Much like Viserys doesn't want to admit about Rhaenyra and Daemon.
It's like he thinks, well, no, no, this will never happen. It's good, not in my house, not my family.
Yeah, we don't do that thing anymore.
Yeah, that's like that's old Targaryen. That's old. That's not our thing.
I mean, having said that, though, Emma, as much as she was from the Vale, she did have Targaryen blood.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not. It's kind of what they do. Like, I mean, we saw it in Game of Thrones with Viserys and Daenerys. Like, we saw it with them. Like, Viserys kind of, if it would have been suitable, he would have gone for Daenerys. He would have taken her as his wife.
Yeah,
But he needed her as a bargaining chip. I think
yeah,
you look at kings. Now he would have been an ineffective king had Viserys lived and gotten to Westeros. Oh, he would have been a horrible king. I think he would have been worse than Joffrey.
yeah, definitely.
And I think he probably would have wed his sister at that point.
he was very much an older version of Joffrey.
Oh yeah,
Maybe not as vicious, but definitely spoiled
oh yeah, spoiled and just rotten, just a rotten person.
and entitled.
Oh yeah, like he's that kid that you see in the grocery store that wants a toy, wants candy, and the mom or dad says no, you don't need it, and they start screaming and belly aching. You know the type.
Yeah. Um. So towards the end of the episode, like we said, Viserys strips Otto as Hand of the King, claims he can no longer trust him. Whether that's true or not, or maybe he just, because of the news that Otto gave him, which really he had no choice,
Yeah,
and he was just passing on information. Um, so Viserys at the moment is without Hand, and then all of this seems to happen in just like a fit of rage, and then of course he sends a messenger to inform Rhaenyra that she must wed Laenor Velaryon. So next week, as the preview is going to show, we are set for a Throneverse wedding, which, much like as we know as wrestling fans, never goes smoothly.
yeah, weddings never go right. Yeah, I wonder who's gonna come running down the aisle with a steel chair.
I think we're going to get
Right.
more than chairs.
I guess it'd be an iron chair.
Yeah, it would be a flaming iron chair, maybe. But there's definitely going to be violence.
Oh yeah, if it's in the Red Keep, it'd be a red wedding.
Mm.
But do we go that route here?
I don't think we can go that route again. Like the Red Wedding was just in a world of its own.
That was brutal.
Yeah,
Like
and
I've been rewatching. So the first time I ever saw that episode, it was after it had aired. I'd gotten home from work one night and I'd fixed myself dinner, and that was the next episode up. And I didn't know. Like I knew that there was like a red wedding coming up, but I didn't know like name of I thought that was the name of the episode was Red Wedding.
yeah,
And I see Brains of Castamere, and then I see, they're all sitting down. I'm like, oh boy. Let's just say I lost my appetite on that one.
and then I'm one of those who knew nothing. Like I haven't read the books, didn't know anything about the lore or the history at that point. Um, so that Red Wedding took me completely by surprise, and there just are not enough words to describe the sheer brutality of that episode.
And for people that maybe don't know the lore, it all goes back to Tywin Lannister. Like the way it goes, it was when Tywin was a young kid. I think he was like in his early 20s. Um, his father Titus was called the Laughing Lion because he was whereas Tywin was, all serious, all business.
Yeah,
Titus was more jovial, and Titus was known to give out money left and right, you know. And at one point there was House Rain. Tywin went to him and just said, "Okay, time to pay up. Give us the money we lent you." And they all but laughed in his face. So Tywin, not wanting to be made a fool of, said, "Oh, okay." So he brought his entire garrison to Castamere, and which is a seat of House, or was a seat of House Rain, and their castle was at one time a gold mine, and he had them seal up all exits and flood the entire thing. So literally everybody in the hall was drowned. The men, the women, the children, all of them. And that's where the song Reigns of Castamere comes from. So if you think back to Red Wedding, when the musicians start playing it,
yeah.
and you just see that look on Catelyn Stark's face because she knew. Like she knew that Tywin was making his move, and that she wasn't going to make it out alive. Like that was the Lannister calling card of whenever they wanted to inflict damage and send a message, they did that. And that was their thing. So I mean,
Yeah.
could we get a red wedding moment in this series? Oh, I think it's coming.
I I don't know what's coming. Like I've seen glimpses like on Wiki of Ice and Fire and stuff like that of the dynasty and all things like that. But I don't know exactly what's happening as far as the story progresses. But I am gonna call Daemon pulling an old Triple H next week and just interrupting the wedding and say, "Hold on a minute."
Oh, yeah, I can see it. Except she won't be passed out drunk and there won't be a wedding chat.
No, she will have gone very willingly.
Oh yeah, or they could, end up being, getting secretly married.
Yeah, exactly.
Find a drunken sect. It's not without precedent in the Game of Thrones verse.
No. So next week is also gonna be, I think, the last episode with the current cast as it is before we
With
time jump.
Millie Alcock, is that her
Millie
name?
Alcock, yeah.
She has been amazing.
She's completely broke out in this show, and it's gonna be a shame to see her go.
Oh yeah,
Um, I mean, not that they're being replaced by inferior actors. I'm sure we're still gonna get some great
oh I'm sure.
scenes.
I think
But
Emma Darcy will be fine. I think she'll do all
yeah, yeah.
right.
Yeah, I've seen her in a couple of things. She is very, very good. Obviously, I've seen Olivia Cook in a lot more things.
Ready
Again,
for anyone that doesn't know, uh, Olivia Cook was in Ready Player One. She played Sam, aka Artemis.
yeah. She was also in Bates Motel.
But I think the adult cast, they're going to be fine. Millie Alcock, she is going to have a really bright future.
Yeah, it's bittersweet to go through these cast changes.
So early,
Um,
it seems.
yeah. I wish we could have got like a season, maybe two of them, but this story is moving pretty
Pretty quick.
like we say it's slow paced, but the actual overall story is moving pretty quick.
Yeah, and I know that there's plans for at least two seasons. I know they've talked about planning to do like four,
Yeah.
but with the amount of time and everything, I don't see it going beyond four. I don't.
Not at this speed. No, if they'd have kept like the younger cast for a whole season, then maybe.
I mean, maybe I would say if they keep the episode count at like 10 or 12, four.
We're moving pretty fast though because, like we keep saying, it's moving towards it's building up to the Dance of Dragons, the civil war between the Targaryens, which actually lasted a couple of years. So if
Oh yeah.
it can last a couple of seasons.
And I will just say, without giving too much, the Iron Throne is kind of becomes like a hot potato.
Yeah.
And my hope is that this doesn't become like the last two seasons of Game of Thrones, like where because the thing with this is all based on the book Fire and Blood,
Yeah.
which is the entire Targaryen dynasty condensed into one book. Like there's obviously like the dialogue we're getting, is paraphrased, but at the same time, like hopefully they do it justice. And I think they will. I think they've learned from the mistakes of the last series. I think they learned.
Well, in all honesty, like the last season was very well made in terms of visuals. and of course music and acting. The problem was, of course, that the
Right.
showrunners rushed it, scripted it like shit, and just didn't care.
And what gets me is like like people that work at HBO are like, yeah, we offered them like 12. Initially, they HBO wanted to do 12 episodes.
Yeah,
No, no, we'll do it in 8. And then they said, well, what about 10? No, we'll do it in 8. And didn't it end up being like 6 episodes?
yeah, 6 episodes. The first three were about the White Walkers, and the last three were about Cersei and Daenerys.
And it's like the Dothraki dying, and then automatically they're back at full strength.
They respawned.
And I think that was the mistake. And George R. R. Martin even confirmed that after I think it was season 5 or 6, they basically locked him out.
Yeah, well, after that, they had to make it up on their own.
But he
But
told them like how he was planning to end the series because he's an older guy, and his thought was, if something happens to me and I die, I want them to know how it's going to end.
yeah, and that's the problem. Like, okay, they ran out of material because they caught up with the books, but he's still right there.
Yeah,
He knows what's going to happen.
yeah. Bring him in and just say, hey, how would you do this? And my biggest issue, if you go back to the lore in Game of Thrones, what is the rule with the Dothraki if you slay their leader? You become the leader. So by killing Daenerys, Jon Snow became Khal. The Dothraki outnumber the Unsullied. And Jon Snow being Aegon Targaryen basically meant nothing.
Yeah, all these reveals and then nothing.
And like Bran, like do they not realize that the last three-eyed raven lived to be like 130? Who actually, there's a theory that the previous three-eyed raven was actually a Targaryen.
Yeah, I've heard he's a rumor for House of the Dragon at some point.
Yeah, there's a theory that he becomes, I think it's Brandon Rivers, I think.
Yeah,
I forget because
um,
he's one of the bastard Targaryen. I can't remember who his father is, but there's a theory that he becomes he's a three-eyed raven.
we also saw Beric Dondarrion in this episode, but
Mhm.
not the one that we know. A very different Beric Dondarrion.
Oh yeah, not the
This one's not immortal.
no, and not it wasn't killed multiple times, but yeah,
No, different
and
person.
Night King sure took him out, and the theory that the Night King was a Targaryen, no,
I
I don't.
always liked that theory.
I I go more onto the theory that the Night King was a Stark.
I like both theories, to be honest. But all the pieces seem to be in place for the. Actually, you know what? The pieces were in place for him to be either Stark or Targaryen, and they just never went with either one of them.
We got the one scene where the Children of the Forest captured him and they shoved the dragon glass dagger into his chest,
Yeah,
and then the eyes turned blue.
but we still don't know who he was.
Yeah. Like, and so after Game of Thrones ended, there were two pilots that HBO commissioned, this and a Night King one.
Yeah, the
They shot
original
a
Long Night.
pilot. They shot the pilot, but for whatever reason, HBO's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that one.
Same with the Game of Thrones pilot. Like, apparent that pilot was apparently so bad it almost killed the show before it even began.
And
Thankfully, they just recast it.
is it bad that I kind of want to see it?
I've always wanted to see it. Like, not to see how bad it was, just to see how different it could have been. And there's also scenes that we never got to see in Game of Thrones, such as the Mad King killing uh, old Brandon Stark.
Oh yeah, like killing Ned's father and brother. Like
Yeah, Like, I think they
I
shot
mean,
that entire scene, and it was in a trailer. We just never got to see it.
yeah, and there's also only thing we saw of Ares Targaryen was the whole burn them all,
Yeah.
and I know they shot the scene where Jaime kills him, and
And even
there's
that, we only saw it at a glimpse.
they could literally there's so many deleted scenes they could release a box set with all the deleted scenes and people would buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I would. I don't know why they haven't included it on, like, the complete box set now, because what damage is it going to do now? We've seen the show.
They
From
got it. Like and that's something I've never understood. It's like with Disney and Star Wars. Like, so Rise of Skywalker, there's a J.J. Abrams cut, his cut of the movie. Like, put that out. You know, show what he had. Like, show if you're sitting on this material. I've never understood why they do that with movies. Like, put it out on video. Like any DVD or digital release. Like, show people, hey, this is what didn't make the final cut.
Yeah, I mean, like Disney, you've got Disney Plus, you've got a streaming platform that you own. Like, it's not going to
Yeah.
cost you anything.
Have it organized like with with a lot of a lot of the online ones. Like, you log in, if you buy a movie online, it'll come with the digital features. So do that. Like, I don't understand it. Like, show us, the all the deleted scenes because there's tons of Game of Thrones. Like, there's probably a season's worth at this point.
Yeah, the Peter Jackson cut of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, give us the
Snyder.
extended edition. But it's I kind of want to see that original pilot just to see like how different it was and also if it really was that bad.
Yeah, I I've been praying to see it ever since I heard about it. Um,
I know a lot of people were recast.
yeah, particularly Daenerys.
I think they made the right call there, though.
Yeah, although there are a couple of scenes that they kept from the original pilot with the cast that they didn't change. And obviously Tyrion looks very different
Oh yeah.
between episode 1 and 2.
Well, even like if you look at how he's described in the books, and like if you read the descriptions, doesn't look like that at all.
No, he's quite grotesque in the books.
Oh yeah, he's described as being almost monstrous. But I don't think they wanted to portray that.
No, Tyrion very quickly became a lot of people's favorite character, so I'm kind of glad that they didn't make him out to be like this monstrous looking creature.
Yeah, and I think of everybody that was on that show, guy, Peter Dinklage, I think was the best.
Yeah,
And
it's
to me, the best scene of him, like and this was a scene that I was shown that got me into it, was the confession scene when he was on trial against for Joffrey's killing.
I think the scene that single-handedly won him is Emmy that year.
I mean, such a powerful scene, where you just see him just eviscerate everybody. And I think it made people just stand up and like look at him and just say, okay, it somebody like Peter Dinklage, it made people take him seriously as an actor.
Yeah. And it's just a shame after the show that he's kind of come out with a couple of questionable comments, but as far as Game of Thrones goes, he was like the hero of the show.
Oh yeah, and I think when season 8, before that was coming out, and there were the rumblings of it, hey, this isn't going to end well. I think, he did his best to hide his discontent.
Yeah.
Like other people, Conleth Hill, you know, there was
He
that
didn't hide at all.
there was that infamous video of the first table read where you see him like reading the script and then just like throwing it down.
Yeah, as soon as his death scene was done, I don't care anymore.
And it was done so horribly.
Yeah,
And then
he.
there's the infamous video on the red carpet of the actress that played Missandei, actor that played Grey Worm, and Amelia Clark, and they ask her, have you shot your final scenes? And what do you think of the season? And they all kind of like look at each other, and she just nervously says, "Best season ever." And it's like, to me, that single interview, that moment, it's like was when you're just like, yeah, this is gonna be bad.
I think Kit Harington had the best idea of not reading ahead, so he discovered what was happening during those first table reads, and his genuine reaction to um, him killing Daenerys was one of the best reactions. He just could not believe it. And everybody else had already read ahead, so they were just waiting for his reaction.
And there was an interview with Isaac Hempstead Wright, and when he read that he was going to end up as king, he thought it was a joke. He even said he's like, I thought it was a joke. I thought they were kidding. And
but but who
him,
has a better story than Bran?
Tyrion Lannister, Jon Snow, like literally any of the people that were sitting up there, like, and then you just randomly let Sansa take the North.
I do like that though.
I do, but I don't. Like, and then there's the Prince of Dorne just sitting there like, you wouldn't let me be independent, but you let her.
Oh, what? Because she's your sister?
But then again, we all know Bran can control people. So is the North really independent?
Yeah, good point. The one defense I always kind of made for Bran being named king, though, which kind of justified it, was how are you ever going to betray him if he knows everything?
True.
Like what? Like what? In that sense, what more perfect person would there be to be on the throne?
I don't know. I still think he's the villain of the series.
Um, you know what? I'm not entirely sure who the villain is of this series. It just seems to be going back and forth.
And what I love, that's what I love about it. Like, there
It is,
is no true hero. It's similar to Breaking Bad, and where there's like no good. There's no true good.
yeah. Everybody has their motives. Everybody, in a way, has a claim. Like you can speak a case for every character in this show. And it just keeps evolving and evolving. So
I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, Alicent Hightower, because like she is in an unenviable position. Like she's got her, and you can tell she's trying to keep her friendship with Rhaenyra. She's trying.
yeah, she was trying to repair that damage in the latest episode. And even defended Rhaenyra when the king was informed of
Basically,
what happened between her and Daemon. So
and like she's basically saying, "You can't do this." But Rhaenyra's doing whatever the hell she wants to do.
but you can see that Rhaenyra misses her friend too. Like as much as she, is very, I use that word again, hostile towards Alicent and very, very conflicted towards her, she still has that bond with her.
Oh yeah, and I think she misses what she had with Alicent Hightower because their relationship is different now. It's Alicent Hightower is the queen. She's also her stepmother. And, I don't think Rhaenyra processed the death of her mother properly.
No, and it was obviously very quickly followed by the death of her younger brother.
And when you're in that kind of position, you're easily manipulated. And Daemon manipulated the shit out of her. Like, he manipulated her is how Otto Hightower manipulated Viserys.
Yeah, I think it also it spoke volumes how um the scenes where Viserys was in bed with Alicent and Daemon took Rhaenyra to the brothel were mirroring each other.
Oh yeah, I mean it was cringeworthy.
It was very cringeworthy, and there were very, very different emotions in both of those scenes, even though they were both kind of doing the same thing.
I mean, Alicent, was just like, yeah, I can't be bothered. Just get it over with.
Yeah.
And I think Rhaenyra is too trusting. Like, I don't think she can see. I don't think she sees how utterly manipulative her uncle is.
No, that's the thing. Like early on, she kind of knew how dangerous he was, but now there's just nothing but this weird attraction.
Yeah, it's. I guess you could say it's a toxic attraction.
Oh, definitely.
It's
Well,
just. It's not. It's not good. Like it's. I mean, I know a little bit of things, but this can't. This I can't see this ending well.
oh, this is gonna end in blood, plain and
And
simple.
fire.
In in those famous Game of Thrones words, if you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
Oh, good old Ramsay Bolton. Yeah, there was an interview with the guy that played him, and they asked him, they said, "What's the biggest thing that surprises you?" And he says, "That people actually like my character."
He was an amazing, hateful villain.
Oh, he was perfect, and the actor is actually a pretty good musician too.
Yeah, and Welsh.
And you hear his voice, and you're thinking, "Wait, this is Ramsay Bolton."
I'm
There's so much though. It's like this is not going to end well.
no, and I'm very intrigued as to how much of a bad person Aegon the Second is going to grow up to be. I've heard he may grow up to be worse than Joffrey and Ramsay.
Yeah, that's a distinct possibility. And that's one of the great things about this universe is like there's really no true good, there's no true evil, but you do have some people that are bad, but you understand them. Like Ramsay and Joffrey, you kind of understand them when you look into their history. Ramsay, you know, what Ramsay Snow, Ramsay Bolton. You look at how Jon Snow was brought up. You know, Caitlyn Stark treated him like shit
Yeah,
his entire life, but Ned did all he could to raise him with love. He loved him. He loved, treated him as he was his son. Ramsay knew nothing but coldness. His father didn't love him, and he had the whole title of being a bastard just thrown at him constantly. To the point when he finally got his father's love, he didn't want it.
no, he wanted nothing to do with him.
I mean, once he got the Bolton name, he killed his father, killed his mother or his stepmother,
Mm.
and his half brother.
In one of the most violent ways.
Yeah, and just so matter of fact, he just was just like,
And he felt
and
nothing.
no. And look at Joffrey. Joffrey was corrupted by Cersei. If you look at how she raised him, it was all about him. He was the top. He was number one. She made him that way. If you take somebody like Joffrey and under different parentage or under a different environment, would he have been that bad? I don't think so.
Because Tommen wasn't.
No,
And actually, neither was Marcella.
no. And it is said that Marcelo, if you recall when Bran was yeeted out of the tower, they were worried about him. You know, and it's Joffrey is just like,
Yeah.
he is his mother's son.
Yeah, and also having all that power at such a young age, he knew he could get away with anything. And he did.
Because Cersei told him, because Cersei didn't care. Like when they were talking about, when Sansa was supposed to be wed to Joffrey, Joffrey didn't want her. And Cersei's like, you don't want her, you don't have to have her. Just when it comes time to make children, that's all that's the only time you need to do it.
Yeah, and that's a recurring theme in House of the Dragon too, as we've seen clearly in this last episode.
Oh yeah.
Um, they've pretty much been brought up to believe that that's all men see women that are good for in this world.
Yeah. I think the one difference is with Viserys' first wife, Emma, like he loved her.
Yeah,
And, I think Viserys tries, but I just think he's at that point where he's just like, his wounds are spreading.
physically and emotionally.
I don't see him. He's basically hanging on by a thread, and it's sad.
I don't know how long he lives for in the books, so honestly, I think we've got one, maybe two episodes left of him.
Oh yeah, like if they stretch it out, maybe into season end of this. You know what? Maybe he's gonna have like the Robert Baratheon where he dies right before the end of the season.
And if that happens, then that just means something even bigger is going to happen at the end of the season.
Oh yeah, maybe it's a fire wedding.
Yeah, I often forget too. Like Ned didn't die in the last episode of season one. He died in
No.
the second to last.
And he's another one. Like I love that they had him on all like the promotional posters. Like you see Ned Stark sitting on the throne, you think, oh yeah, it's gonna be him. When do
But
things work out for Sean Bean? Ever?
exactly, really, we should have known it's Sean Bean. He's gonna die,
He's gonna die or he's gonna be the bad guy. It's one or the other.
or both.
Like I always wanted to make a movie and just have him be the hero and everything work out.
Yeah, I actually struggle to think of a movie he's been in where he didn't die.
National Treasure.
I thought he died in that.
No, you got
Didn't
arrested.
it? Oh, okay. But
But
again, he
like
was the villain.
just one time, like I think he plays it like I don't know what it is in the states. Like all the best villains are always played by British actors. Like I don't know what it is, but it's just the way it is. Like like you look at certain movies and just Matt Smith, the kid that they're I can never remember his name. The kid that played Joffrey,
Oh, Jack Gleason.
yeah, who was in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Batman should have killed him when he had a chance. But he looks so different now, Jack Gleason.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think he even acts anymore. He doesn't need to act anymore.
No, like, and they were gonna. He wasn't. His death wasn't gonna happen when initially it did. But he told them he's like, yeah, guys, I think I'm gonna go.
Well, I mean,
So that.
he did enough.
Oh yeah, and his death was so well done. Like they ripped it right from the book.
Yeah. because they had the material.
Oh yeah,
That's why it was
I
so
still
good.
I still think of the second to last. One of the best moments was Olenna Tyrell and Jaime Lannister. Where she says, "I would hate to end up like your son."
Yeah.
You know, it's like Jaime kind of is starting to think what she's saying, and she just chugs down the poison. She just says, "I want her to know. Tell Cersei it was me," and just dies. Like that is the final middle finger, and I love it.
I think that's one of the most frustrating things about those final 2 seasons is that there were some really, really good moments.
Oh yeah,
It's just that the whole thing was rushed.
oh yeah. Like I would have loved to have seen more with Lyanna Mormont.
Yeah.
You know, I would have loved to have seen more between her and Jorah, but we got that one little scene
Yeah.
before the long night.
There's a lot more they could have done with flashbacks.
Oh yeah, like there's just so much more they could have done.
So hopefully we keep, well, once they age up, we slow down the pace a little bit and we take our time with House of Dragon. We savor it. We don't just down it.
Oh yeah, treat it like a fine scotch. Fine, bourbon where you can sip it and enjoy it, not like the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones where you're shotgunning a beer.
And then you get all wobbly.
Yeah, don't do that. But I gotta think, considering how much hate and vitriol those last 2 seasons still get, because the hate is still real.
Yeah.
Like I can't see HBO letting that happen again.
No, and I think we have more competent writers this time.
Oh yeah, and Sapochnik, still had a lot of input on this season, so I,
Yeah.
I I'm cautiously optimistic.
It didn't come as a surprise to me that he was only the director for the first couple of episodes because his forte is battle sequences, action scenes,
Oh
and we had that a little bit. Now we're kind of getting more into the story side of things, but I'm sure he'll be back to direct I mean, there's gonna be big battles on the horizon.
oh yeah, you know
And he's still involved as producer.
involved. I think, and is he stepping away as showrunner? Yes. And I was talking again. I was talking to my brother about this. I think he's going to be to the Game of Thrones verse what Jon Favreau was to the MCU and to Star Wars. I think he's going to be the guy that gets everything set up on its feet.
Yeah.
There's the rumored Jon Snow sequel. There's that, and there's supposedly other shows that are in the pipeline.
It's
You may well call HBO, the Game of Thrones verse at this
yeah.
point.
It's Bran telling all his stories.
Yeah, or it's Samuel Tarly,
Ah, yeah.
or I guess he's now Archmaester Tarly.
Yeah, yeah, he's on a small council now, yeah. I wonder if we do like see glimpses of King's Landing in this Jon Snow sequel, or if it's just gonna be set in the north beyond the wall, and that's all we're gonna see.
You know what? Again, I was talking to my brother about this, about the idea of it. I said, they have a unique opportunity with this with Jon Snow show. They could use this show to fix a lot of the mistakes of the last season. And you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. Just fix little things that just didn't make sense. Like they because I think Drogon, he's still out there. Where did he go?
I like the
And
theory that he just went to Old Valyria.
yeah, there's that theory, and because if you remember the scene where Tyrion and Jorah were by Old Valyria, there were other dragons. Like you didn't see them, but like you heard them. So is that possible that maybe we're gonna get more dragons coming back? So I mean, there's more coming, and I think one of the lost opportunity was Jack and Hagar and the faceless man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They
I think he's too busy playing a Russian prison guard now.
they served their purpose in training Arya, but we could have seen more.
Oh yeah. I still think, there's so many great seasons in the last, or great moments in the last few seasons. You had Arya taking out Walder Frey.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that was fantastic. That whole moment, like with the pie, and he looks up and he sees her, was so well done.
Yeah, that was the opening scene to season 8.
Yeah.
Right.
Good Walder.
7?
Season 7, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think she went from there to back to Winterfell.
Yeah, she did.
And got to see her direwolf one last time.
Yeah, that was a bittersweet reunion.
It was. I think it's just the 2 direwolves that survived.
Yeah.
Rickon's is dead.
Yeah,
Sansa was
just those 2.
killed. Rob's, well, we know what happened to his. Oh, there's so much. There's so many good moments.
And hopefully many more to come. House of the Dragon has done a great job in repairing the damage already.
Oh yeah,
I think it's restored a lot of people's faith in
the
Throneverse.
Makes me wonder where it's going to go from here. Like, if they keep what they're doing, it's going to be fine.
Well, here's a little glimpse of what we're going to be talking about next time as we prepare for this big time shift. So thank you for joining us on Throne Zone. Once again, make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us at Throne Zone UK on Twitter. And of course, Throne Zone falls under the Max Wrestling umbrella on SoundCloud. We will see you next time to discuss this.
I wish to propose a marriage to my daughter and heir.
A royal wedding! I hope to herald in a second age of dragons.
Rhaenyra's succession will be challenged. Knives will come out.
The king will die. And if Rhaenyra succeeds him, war will follow. Prepare Aegon to rule.